Hey everybody, DJ Lou here. Let's talk about setting up your microphones at an event. So it doesn't matter if you have a Sennheiser, a Shure, Audio-Technica, lower end like GTD. It doesn't matter what brand of microphone that you have. In the end, you have to be able to set up the microphone properly at an event and get the most that you can out of it, and hopefully with minimal to zero issues. Now with this includes finding the proper frequencies to operate on, to be able to ring it out, whether it's outdoors or indoors, and then naturally conveying proper messages to people who are going to use them to make sure that they know what the heck they're doing in the first place. Now one of the first steps in all this is actually finding the right frequencies to operate on, so let's jump into that. Alright, well, welcome to my microphone and mixer box rig. I know a lot of people have seen this setup before. If not, there's a ton of videos describing why I went with Sennheiser, why I have my UI16. I got an IEM below. So check those out if you have any questions about all this. But let's get a little bit more detail of setting up frequencies right now. Right now, both of these mics are actually showing clean right now. I don't have a microphone on right now. I'm just got the receivers on. I could just live with what this offers, but I want to make sure that I'm on the most available frequency available in the area. Now, a lot of times now I actually do some pre-research on what's available in the area to see, is it crowded? Do they have any like totally open channels or whatnot? Because once this finds something, I want to make sure that it it jives for what I have done research-wise. So first things first is we're going to go into the menu selection on my first receiver, and we're going to tell it to do a new scan.
They've gone to plaid.
So right now it's showing that Bank 5 has the most available channels. It shows 12 that are free. Let's just scan through a couple more. We got 4, we got 11, we got 3 on, we got 4 and 3. So they're pretty, around here it's actually not too bad in my hometown. There's definitely a few that occupy a lot of space, but we're going to go ahead and choose what it feels is necessary, which is 5. And we're going to go on 5.1, which happens to be 542.900 megahertz. Now, I'm going to lock that in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring out my frequency scanner. I'm going to dial in on that frequency just to see if that's really as open as it is. And I'm looking right now, the resolution's showing at 540 right now. So in this spot, it's definitely seems to be pretty open, actually all the way up, past 555 and whatnot. So this seems to be a very clean channel. Now, one thing to note, and I'm not sure about Shure and Audio-Technica and some of the other brands out there, so I'm speaking specifically to Sennheiser in this case. Now that I'm on a particular group, so this is group 5, channel 1 that I'm locked into here, all your other microphones should be on that same group. Now you need to change the channel for each one. And when I do that, I'm also going to keep an eye on things, make sure that there doesn't appear to be any interference on that channel. But Sennheiser has built in, each frequency to make sure that they will work together. Because you can get, there's a whole bunch of, anomalies that can happen. I could talk days on this, but the real basics are that if I happen to be, let's say, on Bank 6, there may be one or more frequencies on that may interfere with Bank 5. So Sennheiser puts it clearly on their manuals. Stay in the same group. So whether you're running just 2 microphones, 6 microphones, whatever, try as best as you can to stay in that group. All right, now everything is locked in on my receivers. So now I'm going to go ahead and sync up my microphones, or in this case, just one microphone, into my receiver. So again, this is just for the Sennheiser brand. I believe Shure and Audio-Technica are fairly similar to this. but I can only speak on Sennheisers in this case. There's a sync button. You hold it just a couple inches away. Sometimes it does take a few moments. It's via infrared that it's syncing, and sometimes the sun, wherever, that can kind of block signals a little bit sometimes. Give it a couple taps. I know that I have good reception on this. You'll see on the display there's a 1 and a 2, and that is your antenna that's coming off. So if you've mounted them a certain way, I know my antenna 1 is my left, my antenna 2 is my right. And this one's going to be really close, but sometimes you'll see, like if you change the orientation of your microphone, that it will switch between antennas. And this is called diversity. This is what you really want in a case like this, where your signal may be lower on one end, but the other antenna will pick up a stronger signal and transparently switch over. So now I'm going to take this microphone, point it to a speaker, and now we're going to ring this out in this room. All right, so I don't always get to have a microphone stand to work this out. A lot of times I'm just doing this by hand, and I'll have my tablet in my other hand, and I'm tuning things in and out. But that being said, need this for the demonstration. So I always try to get very close to my speakers, try to basically induce the most potential feedback that I would ever get at a venue. And yes, I've had some people walk literally inches or even take a microphone and point it at my speaker. I don't know why, it just seems to always happen from at least once a month. But anyways, I'm going to place this microphone onto the stand. We're going to kick the EV50 on, and then we're going to see where everything is. So let's test this all out. All right, so we're over here to my desktop, and we're going to ring this out. Now, as I mentioned in my UI video, the one benefit of having the UI versus some of the other brands that are out there is this is browser based. So I can go ahead and whether it's my laptop, whether it's my phone, whether it's my tablet, I can connect one or more sources to it. So very, very handy, especially just trying to demonstrate this. You can see everything as I'm doing on the desktop. So right now, the way I have everything, as you see, my mic 1 is bouncing around right now, so it's picking up my voice. I'm probably about 8 to 10 feet away from the microphone. The microphone's actually pointed away from me. So what we're going to try to accomplish in this is to get the natural resonance of the mic, the speakers, and the room in this case. I have flattened everything out, so I have no EQ on my channel. I have no EQ on my master, and this is going to be a true dialing in each little thing. So let's see how well this goes. So first off, I'm going to bring, since I'm only working with that one, I'm going to bring this up fairly high. Now, another thing to note with the UI 16 that not everybody's aware is I consider this your trim. This is the mixed screen, and this is kind of your finite control of the channels. Now, I know some people have just recently bought the UI 16, and they were complaining that they had to basically max it out, and it's still a little bit quiet. What you want to do is click your gain, and then you'll see the gains for each. Now, this was reminiscent of where I just was, where I did a live performance. You'll see I've got like red and black here. These were two guitars. One had a red cable coming through, one had a black cable, and the one with the black cable was really, really quiet. And so I bumped up the gain quite a bit to make sure everything else was kind of on equal territory in my mix. I'm not sure if other brands do it quite like this, but this is what you'll see in the UI 16. So first off, make sure that your gains and all that are where they're supposed to be before we really start kind of trimming everything out. I'm going to bring my master down for right now, and then I'm going to open everything up. So first off, as you heard, there's some feedback right there. Now I've not turned on automatic feedback suppression yet. Now I could do that and just kind of let it run through the gamut, but it can be a little, just notching everything down. But it's really handy to have the live feedback suppression engaged after you ring everything out, just in case if somebody's voice again has a particular resonance that happens to not agree with the speakers, the microphone, the room, whatever. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the EQ here and we're going to real time this. So now you should see everything that's picking up. So once again, I'm going to bring up my my master until I start seeing some of that feedback that we heard just a second ago. And so we're up there. And we actually did something I didn't want to do. My AFS was on. Let's reset all this, clear all. We're turning it off. All right, so let's try this again. And we saw that was in the higher frequencies. Knock that down a little more. Now, I eventually want to get this to my infinity point without killing my ears in the process. This is pretty damn close. I would not anticipate having an issue with this setup. Now, on the UI16, every channel has its own EQ as well. Unfortunately, this is a much more, you only get really technically 5 points of data to work with. You have a high pass filter and you got your 4 EQ, plus you have a de-esser. So I guess technically a 6 will automatically kicked out as well. I've only had to use that a couple times. But this allows you to really trim things out. Now, one thing that I do like to do with all my mics, for at least like ceremony, for instance, and even reception, is I'll actually cut it 120, 130 at least, because you really don't need that low end, and you'll tend to hear sometimes more rumble than you will the peaks, especially once you've tweaked stuff out. So I will almost always apply a high pass filter in that case. And I have some very interesting EQs on this. Now, this is EQs where my master is flat. So if I'm flat and let's say I'm using my Countryman E6 over-the-ear microphone, you'll see this is pretty aggressive. The 1K side really has a little bit more harshness on it because of the cap that's on. It's a fairly bright sounding microphone. Again, I'm cutting things out around 100 hertz, and I just have everything roll off. Now, this gets tweaked quite often. This is actually paired right now with my Maui 5 Go speakers at a certain range. This is the good general approximation. Now, when I apply my master EQ, this is definitely more flat. I don't need to be as aggressive on this side, but just be aware that you can basically EQ at 2 different spots. The one advantage of EQing it at this end as opposed to the master is now your master, your mix, for instance, like when I'm mixing out my Rain or my Newmark or whatever, that's not affected by the EQ, but then that's not affected by the EQ. So if you happen to have your microphone open, you're playing a set, and you have some potential feedback point, that's coming through on the speakers through the master. And if your EQ is again a little bit more brutal on this and it kind of picks it up on the edges, there may be some more potential there. But either way, as long as you're kind of trimming things out, if you try to be flat all the time, you are going to have feedback. I've never known a situation where there isn't some type of potential. So, spend the time a little bit, EQ out your mics, get everything positioned as best as you can, and most likely you're going to have a great time with this. So you've got your frequency set, things are ringed out nicely, so there should be minimal to zero feedback. But what can you do to convey to clients who are going to be using the microphones to use them properly? Now, it's hard. There's no doubt that the amount of instructions that we try to tell our clients is usually dependent on, are they inebriated? Have they had any kind of public speaking experience before? Are they nervous in front of crowds? Are they even receptive to taking any kind of instruction? So, there's no magic formula in this. At every event, I'm always trying to, for toasters, for instance, to, approach them early on, let them know kind of what the procedure is, tell them, where to hold the microphone, don't use it as a pointer, don't drop the microphone, of course. Don't have to scream at it or anything like that. But, one good example, I just had a wedding recently where the person held the microphone straight up out here. It was really odd. It was actually the first time I've ever seen something like that. And she was also very soft-spoken. She also spoke with an accent as well. So in a room that was already naturally echoey, even as good as I could ring it out, it was a challenge getting that sound out there.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain.
But you do the best that you can do. There's no magic formula. There's no silver bullet here to make every toast or any other type of speech or live performance, for that matter, work perfectly. Now, we're at the behest of acoustics. We're at the behest of people who, most of them have not spoken in public like this before. And, we just try to do the best. So I will say, over time, if you're relatively new into this game and you're starting to really deep dive into better microphone adjustment, whether it's new microphones in itself, getting an EQ to get the best out of it, it takes time. It takes repetitiveness. It takes familiarity with some of the venues that are difficult to really hone everything in, to really get into a good rhythm. So, don't give up for those who are kind of new into the game, and even for people who've been into it for a while. It's always good to have kind of a refresher to make sure all the steps are being followed, because I definitely know some people, and even myself included, who will sometimes skip steps because we've been to this place before and all that. But hey, things change. I had one venue that just by some table placement change really changed the dynamics of the room. And it took me a couple minutes after I dialed things in, and I was like, something's not right here. And I really had to adjust a little bit more for these additional table placements and whatnot. So just be aware that in all, in best practice, you really should go through all these steps each time that you go to a particular venue for an event. Well, I hope you really like this video, and if so, click that thumbs up, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell to get alerts on all this, and head over to my Patreon page if you find all this content's of great value. If you want to see more videos like this, check out my 4 DJs Only playlist and some of the other videos on this channel.